Your number one Christian hit station presents Dog Watch. Former San Antonio police officer, author, and pastor Tim Rupp takes you through real-life scenarios and discusses excerpts from his books. You've never heard cop talk quite like this. Dog Watch starts now.
Hi, and welcome to Dog Watch. I'm Tim Rupp in the Rev.FM studio in beautiful, wintry Idaho Falls, here with station manager Gary Austin. Hello, Gary.
Hey, Tim Rupp. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. 2 days after Christmas.
That's great. I know. How was it?
Christmas is always great here. I mean, I was kind of worried earlier that we weren't going to have a white Christmas.
I know.
But Bing came through. And we are no longer dreaming of a white Christmas. We are living a white Christmas. We need to rewrite that song.
We do.
Living a white
really
Christmas.
Should. Yep, that'd be a good thing.
There you go. Yeah. So, anyways, here we are. Almost the new year. Crazy.
2024.
All these people around us getting older, Gary. What do you think about that?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm still 30.
I feel sorry for them.
I do too.
Yeah, we just keep on. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyways.
When I was younger, I wondered, am I going to make it to 2024? Is the world going to make it to 2024? And here we are.
Remember the book, 1984?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
But here we are. Hey, we're on Dog Watch, and let's do our Officer Down Memorial Page.
Yeah, let's do
it. So I've got Police Officer William Baker from Philadelphia Police Department. End of watch, Gary, December 27th, 1851.
Whoa.
Yeah, 1851. That's 110 years before
my
I was
goodness.
born.
Yeah.
Wow. 1851. Officer William Baker was killed while assisting at a scene of a large fire as he stood at the intersection of 6th Street and Chestnut Street. You know, I'm not sure when they started having official fire departments.
I was just going to ask that.
This is you would think in a big city like Philadelphia in 1851, I mean, Philadelphia, we did the Liberty Bell, know, and so that's been around before our country was. And but still, officers, even today, officers respond to fires to help out, crowd control, traffic control. And all
exactly.
That stuff. Anyways, Officer Baker was attempting to rescue several people, so he was going in. He wasn't just standing in the crowd like we do today. He went in like 9/11, removed property from the building, and when a portion of it collapsed, trapping them inside. The remains of Officer Baker and a prominent citizen were recovered the following day. Officer Baker was survived by his wife. He is buried at St. John the Evangelist Church Seminary in Philadelphia. So there you go. 1851. Officer Baker killed in a fire. What do you have, Gary?
So this is Police Officer Tyler Jacob Stewart, and end of watch 2014 on this date, December 27th. So Police Officer Tyler Stewart, he was shot and killed while investigating a domestic violence incident at a apartment complex. And so what happened was he made contact with the subject, met him at this apartment where he had been staying, and during the conversation, Officer Stewart asked the man if he could pat him down for weapons. You know all about that. Pat down, right?
Yeah, no. Pat down.
Yep, and the subject, he suddenly pulled out a handgun from his pocket and immediately opened fire, striking Officer Stewart. He then continued to fire after Officer Stewart fell to the ground. Wow. Despite being wounded, Officer Stewart was able to activate an emergency alert button, but he did not answer radio calls. So responding officers discovered him suffering from the gunshot wound, and he was then transported to a local hospital where he later passed away.
That's Flagstaff, Arizona, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I used that. That was actually on a body cam.
Really?
It was on a body cam.
Huh.
And what happened? I can fill you in a little bit more details on that. What happened on that was he was following up on a domestic dispute. So it wasn't like he responded and there was a fight going on. He had talked to the female involved earlier, and he was just driving by and said, the guy's supposed to be here, so I'm going to go knock on the door. And so he goes, knocks on the door, and talks to him, and he comes out of the house, and this is one of the training points. I'm not being critical of the officer. This is one of the training points. When the guy comes out of the house, there are some other issues, but when he comes out of the house, he told the guy, he said this, he said, "You don't have any weapons on you, do you?" And when I review it with the officers, I say, what did the officer say when he came in the house? And they all say, he asked him if he had any weapons. I said, no, he didn't. He told him he didn't have any weapons. A critical mistake. The officer said, "You don't have any weapons, do you?" Because the officer didn't want him to have any weapons, and just to check off the tactical box. And then, as he was interviewing him, you could see some things. You need to see this video, Gary. You could see some things going on, and he asked him again. Then he goes, "Do you have any weapons?" He started to pat him down. Something set that officer off. He realized something's not right here. This was already a 5 or 6 minute conversation. And the guy pulled out a .22 caliber single action revolver.
Oh my goodness!
Shot the officer, killed him. Terrible situation. But the officer, here again, Gary, the officer, he was just following up on a report. He wasn't going to arrest the guy. The guy wasn't going to jail. He was just going to get some information and go. And the guy killed him.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyways, terrible situation.
24 years old.
Yeah, young officer. He'd only been on, I think, a year when that happened.
Yeah, I'll bet that is a good training
it is,
video.
And when I use training things, I use training. Officers do good and bad things, and I'm not being critical of the officers. I've made mistakes.
Right. For sure.
We've all made mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. Just like when you're riding a bicycle. You're going to fall. You can do something stupid, and you're going to fall down and get hurt. You get up, and you learn from that mistake. You don't do it again.
Yep.
So,
and you learn from others.
Yeah, and you learn, and that's the best experience. You can learn from somebody else, That means children learn from mom and dad. They've done some dumb things, and learn from them, so you don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you for that. Today, Gary, we're going to talk about something. Oh, by the way, and if you missed our podcast, if you missed our radio show live, you can catch a podcast on Amazon, Google, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. Of course, you can also catch archive shows at therev.fm.
That's right.
FM. So Gary archives them for us. He puts them away in files. And so, Gary, a lot of my training I do, especially recently, I do more and more training with chaplains, people who want to minister to police officers. Mm-hmm. And I get asked a lot, well, what's the difference between a chaplain and a policeman, a chaplain and a pastor, or a clergy, a priest or something like that? Well, there's a lot of crossover, but there is a significant amount of difference. And one of the things that I train chaplains on is how to deal with critical incident stress. Mm-hmm. You say, well, what is critical incident stress? It almost explains itself. It's stress brought on by a critical incident.
Okay.
And there could be many critical incidents, but let me give you here's the definition of critical incident stress by Dr. Jeff Mitchell. And so this is one of the more official ones.
Okay, here we go.
Jeff Mitchell. He says here, CIS, or critical incident stress, is any situation faced by emergency service personnel that causes them to experience unusually strong emotional reactions which have the potential to interfere with their ability to function either at the scene or later. So critical incident stress, Gary, it causes you, it is something so strong that it interrupts your ability to function, either immediately or maybe sometime after.
Absolutely.
So there are a number of things that can bring on critical incident stress. And we often think, well, with a police officer, must be a police officer involved shooting or something. Well, of course, that's a critical incident, but officers make calls every day. Mm-hmm. that can bring on critical incident stress. So we wanted to look at an incident out of Spokane County, Washington. And I found this article about this 11-year-old girl, tragic thing that happened to this 11-year-old girl. And so I'm going to read down through some of this, Gary. And Gary, what I want you to do, and what I want our audience to do, although this is a sad and terrible story for those who died and the family members, I want you to keep in mind the police officers.
Okay. Absolutely.
How would you minister to a police officer who made this call? Mm-hmm. Now, the officers were not in one of the reasons why I chose this story, because they were not in physical danger. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they're just investigating something that happened. And it says this, Spokane County Sheriff's Office said on Sunday, November 26th, so this was just a month ago, deputies responded to a report of a female that had been lying in the middle of the road. According to police, witnesses say that Lily was contacted by an adult male sibling just before the sound of a gunshot or vehicle backfire was heard. Shortly after, Lily's adult sibling, identified as 31-year-old Jordan Lynn Brownlow, was reportedly found slumped over, unconscious in a green Ford Mustang a few blocks away from where Lily was shot. His mother, that is the mother of the young man. Well, actually, it's the mother of both of them. Remember, and one thing I told you about this, Gary, is I did a little bit of research. This family had 12 children. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4 of the girls were adopted, but she had 12 children, and 11-year-old Lily was found shot to death in front of the home, and her 31-year-old brother was found a couple blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
And the mother said this, reported that he has been officially declared dead. Well, he's still on life support to make organ donations. So both of them are dead. The Spokane medical examiner confirmed Lily died by gunshot wound in the head. Detectives believe that Jordan, the brother, shot and killed Lily before turning the gun on himself. So you have the classic murder-suicide. The thing is, usually a murder-suicide, Gary, is usually a husband and wife or a boyfriend-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, it's the male that will kill the female and then turn the gun on himself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's different. Sometimes we have, and if it's a family, it's usually dad kills mom and the children, and then or mom kills children and turns the gun on herself. But this is a brother. So, and we've had this before. Lily and Jordan's mother said that both of her kids, of the 12 she shares with her husband, had been struggling with mental health issues for a long time. She said both Lily and Jordan attempted suicide on multiple occasions. Gary, she's 11 years old.
I know.
She's been struggling for a long time. She hasn't lived a long time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible situation. Obviously she was adopted into this family, so don't know where, what she came from.
Exactly.
To be adopted into that. But the mother recalled her last conversation with Lily before the fatal shooting, which she said Lily told her that she wanted to be done with life. I couldn't imagine an 11-year-old telling me that.
That is horrible.
Sometimes you can say, okay, a teenager. You can see teenagers saying that. They're very emotional up and down.
Yeah.
But an 11-year-old? The mother said she genuinely believes that Jordan's awful violent actions that day were done to protect their family. The affidavit, this is the search warrant affidavit that they got a hold of, said that after the shooting, Jordan sent a couple of text messages to the family members and his roommate that read, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." And then this second to last paragraph, I want to read that. On Thursday, November 30th, a vigil took place at Wilcox Park, Medical Lake, Washington. Close to 100 people gathered in the cold weather to share stories about Lily. In the center of the crowd was a table with photos of her, many screenshots from social media apps and Snapchat were attached to the poster boards. Lily's friends wrote notes on the poster board. Now, I read through this, Gary, and it's hard to read through this and think about those in the background, the police officers.
Exactly. You just don't.
The police officers got a call for they got a call for a woman laying in the street.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing you think of as a police officer? Woman laying in the street. Somebody got drunk and passed out.
Right.
Somebody tripped. Somebody had a heart attack. Something like that. Maybe somebody got hit by a car. They get there. It's an 11-year-old girl shot in the head. A couple blocks later, they discover her brother, who had shot himself and was dying. He was still alive. EMS transported him, but he ended up later on dying. And so officers are going through this, and this is definitely what would be considered a critical incident. Officers across the country deal with this kind of stuff daily. Now, every police officer doesn't deal with something like this daily, but it could happen back to back. It
Right.
definitely could happen monthly.
Mhm.
Something tragic like this, where somebody dies or something serious happened. Matter of fact, I was just talking to you a few minutes ago about a friend of mine who's on the Bexar County Sheriff's Office here. And I just happened to be talking to a pastor earlier today, and he said, "Hey, do you know Officer so-and-so?" I said, "Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday." He said, "You know what? He contacted me 2 weeks ago, and he said that day he did CPR on a 7-year-old
Oh.
girl, and she didn't survive."
Oh.
And that's just something, he just happened to say that in passing. Officers go through critical incidents on a regular basis. So what do? Well, here's a definition that I came up with critical of a crisis. So a critical incident is something that happens critical incident stress comes out of a crisis that happens. So what is a crisis? A crisis for a first responder can be defined as this: a critical, unexpected, and potentially life-altering incident. So that pretty much covers anything that a police officer could go to that could cause critical incident stress.
Mm-hmm.
Let me repeat that. A critical, so something critical is not something trivial. It's critical. It's unexpected. So, I mean, when my father was dying, and I knew it a year or two in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was critical, but it wasn't unexpected.
Right.
So it wouldn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's critical, it's unexpected, and potentially life-altering incident. And I say potentially because some people can have a heart attack. That's critical. It's unexpected, but they can recover pretty quickly and really be, and it won't alter their life as far as their lifestyle. A lot of, put a stent in and people live for years and years afterwards.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's critical, unexpected, and potentially life-altering. But that heart attack could be you're there, you're working, you don't know. So it could be. So, and what is critical incident stress? It's the body's normal reaction to an abnormal situation. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal because, you think about it, somebody pulls out in front of you in your car and you slam on your brakes and you almost hit them.
Yeah.
And then some things happen after that. Your heart starts, so that heartbeat, that's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that was a normal situation, cars were always parked out in front of you all the time. Pretty soon, if it stopped affecting you would just stop. You get good at this. Anyways, that's what that's talking about. Symptoms can be physical, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, or spiritual. So it could run the gamut here. Symptoms may occur immediately, days, weeks, or even months after the event. And that's when they become to get problems.
Yeah. When it comes back. Returns.
Immediately after event, like these officers that responded to Spokane, do you think that night they may have trouble going to sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Especially if they had an 11-year-old daughter at home.
Exactly.
Or if they had a 31-year-old son.
Yeah.
But what if it's weeks and months after? Mm-hmm. Something needs to be done. The chaplain should be able to recognize this stress. So that's one of the things we teach chaplains, to recognize this. And so sometimes people are going through things. It's like, that may be critical incident stress. Let me deep into this a little bit deeper. A little bit deeper.
We know what you meant. We know what you meant.
All that Christmas food, huh?
It's on top of maybe an officer having the same age of a child at these critical incident situations, but could be that maybe they're dealing with the same kind of thing that with whatever happened, maybe some mental issues or maybe some, and officers are human.
Yes.
And that's the thing. This is a very, very sad story. But we're talking about the officers that, I don't always think of. It's like, that they go there, and the importance of having a chaplain who, there are differences, and you talked about that, but the importance of the officer communicating too, that, man, I'm struggling.
Yeah,
having a hard time.
Exactly.
That's hard.
So the officers need to learn to be transparent with someone when it's safe to do.
Yeah.
And that is what's critical.
Yeah.
And obviously a safe place should be the officer's spouse.
Right.
So, and that's so tough, because let's just say the officer is a male, and the spouse is a female, and he goes home after something like this, and a lot of it's on his mind, and she just had a rough day with the kids, you know, and she burnt dinner by mistake or something because one of the kids threw up, and so she's had a rough day, and he comes home and he's late because he made this call, and she's upset because he forgot to pick. And then, do you think he's going to share with her what went on?
Right. No.
No, he's got to take care of his wife. He's got to take care of his family, or, you know, things can just blow up and get out of control. And one of the statistics, I'll just mention this here, that I discovered lately, is there is domestic violence in police officers' families. 28 to 40% of police officer families have domestic violence.
Wow.
And it's unreal. And they say, well, what does that compare to the average? 16%. So if you take the low number, 28%, that's nearly double the average.
Yeah.
And so you can not making excuses, but you can understand why things can get out of control real quick. And so critical.
Yeah.
What are some of the examples of critical incidents? Of course, officer-involved shooting. I mentioned that earlier. Accident involving serious injury or death, especially the children.
Yep.
Being the victim of a felonious assault. How many times are officers assaulted, you know, and everything works out okay?
Yeah.
Somebody tries to run them over the car and they miss, you know, and nobody gets hurt, but the officer was almost ran over.
Right.
Death of a colleague or partner. Death or serious injury of someone in the officer's custody. You don't think about that. Oh, what, you know, the prisoner died. Poor family. What about the officer?
Yeah.
You know, his handcuffs are on somebody that just, you know, died of overdose or something like that. Near shoot incident. How many times have I been in a near shoot incident? I couldn't tell you, Gary. I really couldn't. Incident involving multiple deaths or injuries in a short amount of time. And so, you know, when I worked homicide and worked murders, man, I deal with, you know, murders a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and you're always dealing with death over and over again.
Oh, that is so sad.
Anyway, and then I just mentioned we're just about out of time, Gary. It looks like we are out of time. But I just want to mention some of the long-term ways how to deal with it. Proper exercise and rest, and consult people who've experienced similar stress. Don't make important decisions when you're going through this. Avoid alcohol and drugs. Allow yourself time to grieve. Eat healthy. Talk to a trusted friend, clergy, or chaplain. That's what you said, Gary, that you need to be able to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a trusted friend, which could, I hope, includes your spouse, clergy, or chaplain. Participate in a critical incident stress debriefing, the professionals that help you out with that. So, hey, thanks so much, man. We're out of time. I thought this was so important to go over, and just remind officers, hey, get help. Seek out your chaplain, seek out your clergy, seek out your pastor, your minister. And thanks for listening in. If you have a topic or question you want addressed on Dogwatch, send me an email. You can email suggestions, questions, comments, or complaints to dogwatch@therev.fm. That's dogwatch@therev.fm. Thought from the good book today? It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Thank you for joining us. Remember, make the watch strong.
Dogwatch is brought to you by the Strong Blue Line and your #1 Christian hit station. Send your comments and questions to dogwatch@therev.fm. You can download the Dogwatch episodes from therev.fm, as well as offer your financial support for this program. Be encouraged, be strengthened, be enabled in your faith with Dogwatch.